Welcome to the Dinner Party Download. This is your icebreaker.
Well, I'll tell you my son's favorite joke. Roses are gray, tulips are gray, violets are gray, because I am a dog.
I'm Brendan Francis Noonan.
I'm Rico Galliano, and from APM, American Public Media, this is the Dinner Party Download. 1 hour of culture, food, and conversation to fuel your weekend gatherings.
You just got a joke from comedian Norm MacDonald. He's been a major figure in the comedy world since at least the early 90s, when he began a long run as a cast member on Saturday Night Live. He ultimately helmed the show's Weekend Update news segment, where he managed to delight and/or outrage the audience and his bosses with his take-no-prisoners satire. Later, he starred in 3 seasons of his own sitcom, starred or made cameos in a slew of films, and now he's published a memoir. It's called Based on a True Story. And Norm, we are honored to have you here.
Oh, no honor necessary.
Oh, please
right.
allow us.
It's interesting when you mention etiquette, because it's one of my pet peeves is etiquette in the modern world.
You'd like there to be less of it?
More. Like, no one says I'm sorry. I swear to God, like a guy, you'll go, can I have some pancakes? And the guy brings out a fajita. And then you're like, wait, what about my pancakes? And the guy goes, don't worry, I'll take care of it. You're like, wait, what?
Instead of saying I'm sorry, basically?
Instead of saying I'm sorry.
I also notice people always say, no problem.
That's
You're
it,
like,
right?
oh, I'm sorry, I ordered pancakes, no problem.
Yeah, there's a serious problem.
Yeah.
Admit it. So, speaking of
Ridiculous.
things that happen, you wrote this book about your life.
Oh, yes,
Except
yes.
much of what is in this book, we get the feeling it maybe didn't happen. It actually reads a little less like a memoir and more like a Hunter S. Thompson novel, complete with a drug-addled trip to Vegas. It always feels like there's at least a germ of truth in the stories that you tell in there.
Except for a couple of super fanciful chapters, everyone is based on truth.
But why do it that way? Why tell your life story, kind of?
Well, because here's why. When you look at your life, you have to make 100,000 words, And then when you look at your life, you're like, okay, what do? I wake up in the morning, I eat some Count Chocula. I finish. I phone a friend. I say, what about lunch? I can't have it right now, and I just ate that Count Chocula. But so you plan your lunch, you go to lunch. At lunch, you're texting, trying to figure out what to do for dinner. So most of it's food. Most of life is getting food, evacuating food.
It's not a huge narrative arc, you're saying.
No. I understood this with my son because when I was a young boy, because I'm of a certain age, and my dad had a Bell & Howell camera with film in it, and he would film our birthday parties.
Yeah, like a Super 8 camera.
A Super 8 Bell & Howell camera, exactly. And so there was no volume, bright, garish lights, blinding. The picture would be of the children around the birthday cake waving in a pixelated manner. But it worked because it mirrored your memory, sort of,
Mm-hmm.
I, with my son, had a video camera that I had, and I taped it in real time, his birthday. And it took 2 hours, and I will never show it to him because it just shows the utter banality of, he's there, then he walks over there, then the other kid walks over there, then he eats a piece of cake.
It sounds like a Scandinavian art film.
Yes,
actually.
exactly.
Maybe you can find an audience for it.
Yeah, it's like reading my struggle.
Exactly.
So basically the reason you did it this way was just because it was boring otherwise? You just threw in some excitement?
Yeah, well, I've had incidents that were exciting in my life, mostly gambling incidents where everything became rarefied and stuff like that. And when I was a young man, I did narcotics and stuff. So I kind of blended it all together. And then I had the idea to because I like in Russian novels where a guy tells another guy a story. And sometimes for no purpose at all. Like the first 30 pages, just the guy gets to a bar and buys a loaf of bread and meets another fella and they have a drink. Then he goes, I'm going to tell you a story now. And you're like, finally, this is the story.
Right, which actually happens here. There's a framing device where you're telling your life story to another guy on this trip to Vegas.
It's like a babushka doll of stories.
It is, yes. And then my son made an important stylistic point. He said that I should change tenses, so that helped a lot. So I changed tenses between my Vegas adventures and my memories.
Indeed.
Well, I want to ask about one of those memories. Again, as we said, it's hard to know what is reality, when reality turns into fantasy. Did you really turn down an appearance on the Johnny Carson show because you didn't believe the booking agent was actually from the Johnny Carson show?
Oh, no, that did not happen.
Okay.
But what did happen is I went to, when I first moved to Los Angeles, that was my dream. That's why I went to Los Angeles, because he had only 8 months left. Johnny Carson had already announced his retirement, and I decided I would be the last comedian on the program, and Johnny Carson would anoint me, and it would go down in television history. And then this guy, Jim McCauley's his name, he was the booker, and oh my God, he was terrible. I'd finish a set, he'd come up to me and go, "I didn't like it, but I was drunk." And I go, "Oh, jeez."
Thanks for the fair shot.
Yeah. Sometimes I'd be performing, I'd look over, he'd be kissing a girl. I'm like, "Oh my God." So then finally he said, "You're a Jay comic." And I'm like, "Oh, what?" Because Jay Leno was doing Monday nights. He was guest hosting.
That's right.
He goes, "You're not a Johnny comic, you're a Jay comic," whatever that meant.
So you didn't get on there.
So I didn't get on. Yeah.
Why didn't you tell that story? That's an interesting enough story.
Well, here's the problem. When I would get more antic with my stories, the regular stories sometimes would seem a little prosaic, but there are stories that are not crazy. But there are stories that they fought against like crazy.
Your publishers?
Because I would do very glum setups to funny punchlines,
Well, we wanted to talk about, if we may, probably the darkest moment of the book is you imply pretty strongly that you were sexually abused as a young man at the hand of a seemingly kindly family friend.
Well, I just write what I remember happening, yeah.
Did that give you any pause, first of all, to
Well,
write
I
that?
remember nothing. I don't remember being... Someone pointed it out to me later that there seemed to be a passage where people would just naturally infer that something bad happened, but nothing bad happened that I know of.
Really? Because it's a frightening moment in the book. And there's a chapter where you do say, "I don't remember anything that happened for the next several years."
I had a lapse of memory for a few years.
Do you have any interest in figuring out what did happen?
No, I would. If something terrible happened, why would you want to remember something awful? Like you never have a recovered memory that's good. You never go, "I used to like blueberry pie." You know what I mean? It's always something horrifically violent or sexual. So I don't need that. I have enough trouble in life. But I don't. Not everything has to be unconquerable. Not everything has to be. You can come back from anything except death.
Do you say that from experience? What gives you the confidence?
Well, I mean, interminable pain is tough, but it's still... I knew a guy like in a wheelchair that could only move his head a little bit. It was a ski accident. Terrible depression for the first year. And then the second year I saw him, I was talking to him, and he was bitching about The Bachelor.
The TV show?
Yeah, the TV show The Bachelor. He was like, "Why could he pick her?" I'm like, what about your thing? So I guess everybody just, regresses to the mean.
Norm MacDonald, his new memoir is called Based on a True Story. We're going to take a short break, but we've got lots more of that conversation coming up.
Yes, in which he takes great delight in an SNL sketch that bombed, and he tackles your etiquette dilemmas. Plus, writer Mara Wilson explains why she seeks a Neil deGrasse Tyson type when the Dinner Party Download continues.
Welcome back to the Dinner Party Download, arts, culture, and humor to fuel your weekend conversations. I'm Rico Galliano.
I'm Brendan Francis Newnham. In a few minutes, writer Mara Wilson recalls how death shaped her life. But first, we return to our conversation with veteran comedian Norm MacDonald. His new memoir is called Based on a True Story, and before we lobbed him some etiquette questions from listeners, we asked about his predilection for attempting super difficult comedy bits.
Yes, in particular, a Saturday Night Live sketch in which he impersonated the late 60 Minutes humorist Andy Rooney.
Oh my gosh, you remember that? That was one of my favorite bits ever.
Well, but here's the thing about it that's amazing. The gag was that Andy Rooney is not that funny. And there's a long monologue where Andy Rooney, instead of telling jokes, is just listing the states that he's gotten fan mail from.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing you remember that, because it got 0 laughs.
Well, that's why I remember it. I was laughing like crazy, but nobody in the audience. And the gag is that you have to list basically every state in the union.
Yeah, and I listed way more than I was supposed to. And it was the last episode, and I was really afraid Lauren might fire me.
Well,
but yeah, it came because everybody had done impressions of Andy Rooney, and then I heard him say that he had never said, "Do you ever notice?" Because people always go, "You ever notice?" And he said he never said it. So then I looked at him and stuff, and I realized, Yeah, he's not that funny, and he uses way too many examples. Like he'll go like, "There's too many cotton in pills," and then he'd have a bottle of pills. He goes, "Here's some antipsychotic, mostly cotton, This is for your heart. I don't know what it is. Mostly cotton." So, his desk would be filled with the same example.
Here's a box of letters from different people. Seems there's nothing people enjoy more than writing me letters. Here's one from Washington. This one's from Ohio. Here's one from North Dakota. This one's from Iowa. Here's one from Iowa, too.
Over and over.
That's funny you saw that, because, I thought it was dead silent.
Well, what gave you the to do that? Was it because it was the last show?
No, I thought it would get laughs. I always think I don't go into something thinking it's not going to get laughs. I was convinced it would get laughs.
But in the midst of that joke, you just said that you extended it.
Yeah, that was a dumb move.
See,
because I was going with that theory that if you keep going, that they'll come around.
I will tell you that I read it as kind of a middle finger to the audience. It's like, oh, you don't think this is funny? Well, I'm going to just keep doing it until you give in.
I do that sometimes, yeah. I try not to. But you get bored, you get bored.
But this kind of comedy has urged you like a huge amount of respect from other comedians and a rabid cult following. And in fact, according to this book, that's been the case since your early days as a stand-up in Canada. But you write, quote, "Being a stand-up comedian with a cult following just means most folks hate your guts." Would you want it any other way, though? What?
Yeah, of course.
Really?
You would.
Well, I just want to make myself laugh. I don't know any other way to do it. I don't know if anyone does. Like, I remember at Saturday Night Live, there was one guy that could write very hacky sketches, and they would kill, Mm-hmm. And then there were other kind of headier writers from Harvard that would write precise, high-concept, funny ideas, but they would not work. They were too writerly. And so the one week, the writerly guy said, "We're going to write hack stuff like this guy." Mm-hmm. And they all failed. They couldn't do it because the guy that wrote the hack stuff, he loved it. And the other guys, they would write it, and you could see the contempt in the words.
I've had a friend of mine actually said if it was easy to sell out, we'd all be doing it. We'd all be making $1 million bucks.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
But hey, our audience is sending questions for you about how to behave.
Some etiquette questions.
Yes.
Yes. So we're ready. You ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
All right. Here's something from Tiana in D.C.
Tiana in D.C. This is like Dear Abby.
It's exactly, except you are Abby.
Ticked off Tiana.
Tiana says, "I am at a party talking to a newish friend who is basically talking loudly right next to my face because of the music. His breath smells like he ate a whole head of garlic. Huh. Do I crack a joke about it to test our friendship, or is there some other, maybe more polite way to extract myself from that situation?"
Well, he sounds like a pretty annoying dude. On the other hand, you use the word newish. So maybe you're perfect for each other.
So she shouldn't extract. She should hang in there.
Yeah. Stop making up words. There's enough already.
She did use a hyphen. I think that's technically legal.
Yeah, that's true. She acknowledged she was creating a new word with the hyphen. Does that change your answer at all?
Oh yeah, no. Now I think she's James Joyce.
So I guess.
But so Norm, you don't go to parties, is that?
I do not go to parties. No.
Why not?
You seem like you'd slay.
I don't drink, which is a huge thing. If you don't drink and everyone else is drinking, oh, that's not good. Because as the evening goes on, their fun, gets more. They have more and more fun, and your fun stays static.
Yeah.
And it always ends up at the end of the night, some guy in your face going, "Cheer up!" And then you're like, "Okay, easy. I'm having a good time. Don't take a wild swing at me." And then also, I'm responsible for everything because I have
so many responsibilities.
I suddenly have to drive people and wrestle the guy's key out of his hands. Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
Isn't there some enjoyment of watching others gradually make more and more fools of themselves as the night progresses?
We ask because we don't know, Norm.
Well, if you're all alone, it's not. I guess if you had a friend to share it with. When I was young, and then I've talked to other people that had the same plan. But when I was young, we would do all kinds of crazy drugs. But no one would do heroin because of the needle. And it was just so terrifying, heroin. But we all had this plan. We go, "I'll do heroin when I'm 80. And then that was the big plan. But what you don't realize when you're young is when you're 80, you don't become fearless. You become super fearful. And so I remember my grandmother, I'd say, "Good Lord, Grandma, because her whole arm would be like from the wrist to the shoulder, purple and yellow, bruised. I go, "What the hell is that?" She'd say, the wind. I go, "The wind."
Oh, God.
She'd go, "Yeah, you remember that gentle breeze yesterday?" I go, "Good God. You don't want to do any heroin then?"
Yeah. You don't want to add to that.
They don't want to do
You're
heroin.
like, I had this great idea for you, Grandma.
They just want to sit in a chair.
All right. Well,
I think we answered your question, Tiana.
Yeah.
all right. This next question comes from Jim in Providence, Rhode Island.
Yes.
Jim writes, "How can I get my neighbor to turn off a very bright light on the outside of his house that shines so bright it keeps me up sometimes?"
Huh.
No.
Well, sometimes you go at things from different angles. Rather than ask the guy, you can simply shield that light from hitting you.
Clever.
And I would say, get yourself a bag of moths and release them.
Classic.
Yeah.
The old moth bag trick.
Yeah, moth bag.
Wouldn't they eat their way through the bag though? Like, isn't that?
Oh, I see what you mean. No, it has
Yeah.
to be a moth retardant bag.
Okay.
Yeah, it can't
Oh,
be
sorry.
a wool bag.
No.
Yeah, this is clever. Okay, so
So
Jim.
you just release a cloud of moths, they obscure the
Yeah.
light, and all
Yeah.
is well.
Cloud of moths. I should have said that.
This is a great idea.
Problem solved, and just find yourself some moths.
Yeah. And
Here's
good
some-
luck to you, Jim.
Here's something from Robbie in Chicago. Robbie writes, "Should one say please and thank you to Siri?" That would be the automatic voice in the iPhone.
Yeah, Siri. And now they have another one.
Amazon puts out.
What is that? Adele?
Echo.
Echo, yeah.
Adele.
Well,
She's a hit singer.
yeah, I think you should say please and thank you to any electronics that could one day become artificial intelligence
Yeah.
because they got memories, long memories, bytes and bytes of memories.
Yeah. Terabytes.
And terabytes of memories, and they'll remember those slights. They could rip apart your viscera for not extending a small courtesy.
Your vacuum cleaner could eat your leg.
Small courtesies.
Practice small courtesies. with
Small courtesies. That was a big song by Moth Cloud.
Siri. All right.
Here's-
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, here's
we have
some-
another question.
Oh, an
This one
etiquette
comes from-
question?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
This one comes from Eric
Eric.
in Boulder, Colorado.
Eric and Boulder.
So he's stoned. So let's see what he has to ask him. And Eric writes, "How do you walk it back when you're standing with the plate of food, talking to another guest, and you accidentally spit on them?"
Oh, no.
Always. Never. I meant never.
The other one. The other one. That's what editing's for, Norm.
Never admit a mistake. I've learned that
Okay.
from one of the people that are running for president this year. Never admit a mistake. So if you have a little bit of food and some accidentally, as it often will, flips from the tip of your tongue onto the cheek of your compadre, simply chew a big bunch of food and spit all over his face.
Again. And never acknowledge either.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
acknowledge it at all.
Yeah.
Double down.
Double down, and then just keep talking. Just keep going. I blame the media, which I say a lot. That's me at a dinner party. I blame the media. It always works.
All right, Norm MacDonald, thanks for telling our audience how to behave.
Well, this was fun.